Hi, Kelly. How are you?
Well, I think we can get started. Thank you so much for joining this AHOD session. And we just want to let you know that it's being recorded. Please take time to check out our speaker's bio on the PDS website. We want to make sure she has enough time to talk and answer your questions tonight. So we'll focus on your questions. If you could please during the session so we can all hear. And feel free to utilize the chat. You can look for dates and times for our follow-up sessions throughout fall 2021 on the PDS website. And we have an evaluation form here to review the session at the end. We really appreciate your feedback. So we hope you all had a chance to view Wendy's video links and look at her PDF file. And I'm going to let her take it away. Enjoy the happy hour.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I'm so happy to be here. I love that we're at happy hour right now, guys. And I was working all day. It's our in-service week at school, so I'm getting ready. And just an hour ago, I was at back to school night meeting my students. And it was so joyful because students are coming back to school. So my hope tonight is just to answer your questions and support you in any way I can with regard to social emotional learning. I'm truly an advocate for social emotional learning, and I just want to help empower teachers through understanding and concrete strategies so they can bring social emotional learning alive in their spaces, wherever you might be in education. So if you did see the videos and you did see the PDF, you saw a definition of SEL, the CASTLE model, the 5 competencies, and then you enjoyed learning about some specific strategies or activities you can do to support each competency in settings for various ages. I'm just here tonight to answer your questions and to help you get ready to lead with that SEL in mind when you head into your classroom. I will tell you that SUNY Buffalo is a very special group to me because, Kelly, you were my very last trip before COVID closed down the world in March of 2020. So I just have this like very fond place in my heart for my time that I've already spent with SUNY Buffalo. And it's really nice to be back here again. I don't know if you have a protocol, Kelly, for questions. What I do sometimes in sessions like this, if you have a question, type next into the chat box and I can just call on people in order. And you can just ask a question in the chat too. We can monitor that. So do you, camera on, camera off, question in the chat, or type next if you want to unmute and speak.
Sounds great.
And no question is too small, I might add. No question at all. Okay, thank you. What is the best way to teach empathy in the classroom? Thank you so much. So I think we have to teach explicitly what empathy is. We have to define it and explain to kids that empathy is feeling with another, right? It's seeing through the eyes of another, putting on those shoes, feeling with them, the heart of another. And depending on your age group, you can have several different tools. You can use literature when you're in an elementary setting. There's some really powerful videos. I think I had some in the presentation that you can actually play for middle school and high school students. And I think once kids understand what empathy is, you have to encourage analyzing whether empathy is present or absent in everyday situations. So in something as simple as like lab partners working together, if you start to have conflict or you start to see that things aren't working, you can actually have a conference with kids and say, hey, how are you? How's it going? You might say, what's going on? And, somebody might say, oh, so-and-so is not sharing or so-and-so is not listening to me or whatever. And then you can actually ask the question, like, are you using empathy right now? And kids are kind of like, what? But if we don't ask them that question, they'll never apply it to real life situations. They'll just have this notion of empathy in a storybook. I use something called an empathy meter in my classroom where the kids like measure, are we being really empathetic, kind of neutral, or lack of empathy? And when you see people saying we're at that lack of empathy, they're ready to talk. They're ready to say, someone's not doing something and understanding how I feel. And then you can start to brainstorm ways to fix it. So teach it explicitly. Video is powerful. We're teaching a video generation, right? So I think with the older kids, video is really powerful. And then start to normalize it in the classroom. How can we be empathetic listeners in this next activity? Let's just take a quick poll at the end of the class, end of the day. What do you think? How many people think we had a lot of empathy going in here? How many people think we were out of empathy? We had a lack of empathy today. How can we fix that? Just get them talking. Ask them how to fix it. Okay, and then the link for Rose and Thorn is not working. Yes, I can absolutely explain that. And I'll put a link into the chat. So Rose and Thorn is a really wonderful activity, community building activity. And I think it works a little better for older kids. I tried it with my second graders and it kind of fell flat. But what it does is that it normalizes that we're all going through good things and hard things at the same time. And it's completely normal to have good things and hard things going on at the same time. So if you say we're going to do a Rose and Thorn activity, you'd like to ask people, can you name something that's going well and something that's worrisome? And if somebody said, Wendy, what's your Rose and Thorn for today? I might say, well, today my rose is that was our son's first day of high school, really exciting. We were proud of him. He was happy going off to his new, next destination. And a thorn is that it was like 95 degrees and we were outside meeting families. So I was like sweating big time. And, you have that like stress, adrenaline rush, but like, that's just a tiny thorn, right? I have a friend whose husband is on a ventilator right now. That's a huge thorn in her life. But what it does is it lets you think about positives and negatives because we all have all of them all the time. And then when you share them, it really opens up that humanity, right? And normalizes that we're all going through hard things and good things at the same time. And as you share, if you're comfortable sharing, people will connect to them. Oh, I have that same kind of thorn. Oh, I had the same kind of situation. And just as we reveal ourselves to people, that's where those connections come alive. I would recommend doing it among a staff, a group of adults, and then also in your classroom. And I will definitely put that link in the chat. I'm actually going to put in a link to an article from Edutopia that has 10 community building activities, and Rose and Thorn is one of them. Okay, so I'll get that in there. Okay, so let me go back to the next question. How can we increase self-confidence in an elementary setting? Okay, great question. I just met probably, 12 students tonight. Some of them wouldn't look at me, wouldn't speak to me. They're like terrified to go back to school. Some are shy, some are off the charts excited, almost like to the point where you're like, whoa. So kids are at all different places right now because of COVID, and that's kids from like 5 to 18, right? Increasing self-confidence, I think, will start with naming strengths. Okay, so you want to embrace activities where kids can articulate what they're good at. And then I think you want to get into like hopes and dreams and goals, because if they can see their strengths and they can articulate what they want to do, they can maybe forge that path there. Okay. And you want to talk about growth mindset and that word yet. Oh, I can't do this yet, but here's my goal. Actually give homework sometimes that says over the next week, learn how to do something. Identify something you want to do and practice a little bit each night. And kids have learned to tie their shoes, do a cartwheel, cook spaghetti. Just anyone, any age can do that, and then share that. And as people start to see they can learn, they will get confident. Even like with looking at mathematics or something that is a challenge, something you can't do. Okay, we don't know how to do this yet, but how are we going to get there? So have kids name strengths. And then the other thing you can do is have other kids name strengths of other kids, right? I did something called the Compliment Project next year. We just like piled love on like 2 kids a day, compliments. And we did it on a Jamboard, so it was visual because we were on Zoom. And then the kids were like, can you put the link to the Compliment Project in your Bitmoji classroom? So if we're ever feeling sad, we can read those compliments about each other. Like they immediately knew the power of that. Our assistant principal talked about when he was a music teacher, he did ovations like, hey, today we're just going to give an ovation to Kelly. Like, let's just love on Kelly, give those ovations. That will build up confidence and strength. And what happens is that when people start to reveal their humanity to each other, make these connections, you might then have a student saying, hey, I just noticed so-and-so is kind of shuffling in today and looks sad. He needs an ovation. They are going to start to recognize when they need to support each other. So I think those are some activities that you can do at all ages. And ask the kids how you want to do it. With the older kids particularly too, like they're kind of self-conscious, middle schoolers, maybe not as open with emotions and stuff. Be like, how do you want to do this? And let them share how. Going through the chat here. Okay, how can we increase healthy mental health in the classroom, especially during a pandemic? Yeah, right now, the world is still kind of on fire, to be honest, right? Like when I packed up in June, I thought we were done. I thought we were good, and we're not. And one of our kids actually struggles with anxiety, and her mental health has been really awful over the last 18 months. So the way we increase mental health is we create these safe spaces for kids and for adults, right? So if you're coming in and you're shy or you're anxious or you're struggling, we say it's okay to be how you are right now. And then we layer in those supports. Like, I really think we're going to have to start slow in this school year. So I'm looking at my plans, not from last year, from the year before, and I'm slowing them down because I don't think people's stamina will be as high as it would be normally. And I think just the thing we need to do for that mental health is normalize not okay. It's okay to be not okay. And then create these safe spaces where people can kind of ease into this. Like, we're not gonna be able to do school the way we would have 2 years ago for the first week. And if we think that we are, we're like kidding ourselves, right? Like, there's just no way. Same thing for the adults in your spaces. Like, if you're having time to come together as a faculty or staff, I mean, people are still dealing with job-related COVID losses, worry, stress, and fear, older relatives. Some people have lost people. Maybe some people have relatives in Afghanistan or something like that. Like, you've got just all these things going on. So I think you encourage sharing and connection and slowing down a little bit, and then create those support systems for when people will. You can also center positivity, calm, and joy in your space. In the video, I think, did I show you guys the Castle 3 signature practices, the joyful, inclusive openings, the engaging activities, and the optimistic closing? Just doing those 3 things will create a joyful space for learning. So the optimistic closing, in my opinion, is brilliant, right? So you have a hard day, you have a lesson that tanks, you have something that doesn't go right, but you still close on that positive note, and you're teaching kids how to do that. And when we bring center calm and joy, we get those positive chemicals in our brain, right? We're like releasing dopamine and serotonin instead of cortisol. So if we can do those things in our spaces, even if the storm is raging outside of our space, that's going to help kids be more mentally healthy. Okay. And I can go back to any question I need to. What are the important differences in activities across grade levels to make sure we reach students at different ages? So to be honest, I'm going to be legit honest here. So many of the things I outlined aren't that different. The activities themselves, what's different is how they will look at the grade level, right? So like, if I did something like, doing Rose and Thorn for like 7 and 8 year olds will look very different than when you do Rose and Thorn for 16-year-olds. Do you know what I mean? Doing identity work. What are your values? What's your culture? What's your heritage? That's going to look very different in an elementary setting than it does in a middle or a high school setting. So the activities themselves are kind of, a lot of them universal. They're like high leverage activities. They will just play out differently in the different spaces. I think the charts I gave you had many of the same activities. And at the bottom, I tried to link in one that I thought was a little more age appropriate. But some of the ones that I linked in, I'll be honest, for middle school and high school, I've done in 2nd grade with great success. I was just trying to give you some concrete examples. The Edutopia article that I'm going to link in here has 10 community building activities for all ages. And like, they truly are all ages. Like, shout outs is a great example. You can shout out, have students shout out each other for good things they notice and see in 1st grade and 12th grade. You can have shout outs at a staff meeting. That's just making people feel good and recognizing the positive. So I think it's not that the activities themselves are so different. I think they just look different at different ages. You can have a gratitude journal for 7-year-olds and you can have a gratitude journal for 15-year-olds. They're just going to be maybe grateful for different things, draw different things, that kind of stuff. Can we use visual for early childhood for Rose and Thorn? Yeah, so you could create your own visual, right? So you just want to have some kind of pictorial representation for something positive. Maybe it's like a sunshine or something. And maybe your Thorn might be like a sad face emoji. Emojis are awesome to use because they're the universal language of communication. And everyone knows what they mean no matter what language they speak, where they live, or how old they are. So emojis are really a positive thing. Hold on one second. I'm going to get one thing with emojis on it that I have in my dining room. Hold on. I just did this video on healthy brains for another project I'm in. This is a poster that I hang in my classroom. Okay. So I use emojis to, move over here, to illustrate these different emotions. And we want kids every age to go beyond the emotions of happy, sad, mad, worry. Those are like the 4 base emotions, but we've got, if you're happy, you can be feeling interest, curiosity, pride, gratitude, all these kinds of things. So we want kids to be really literate with their emotions, to understand how many there are and what they mean. So if someone's mad, are you jealous? Are you disappointed? Are you fearful? Are you tired? Like, what's going on? Let's pick apart mad a little bit. Don't be afraid to create your own visuals, right? Or even ask the kids, hey, we're going to talk about some things that are going good, things that are not good. What picture do you want to use? Maybe a teddy bear is the positive one, right? Maybe a rain cloud is the more negative one. Ask the kids. And if they have a stake in how you set it up, they'll be more engaged in it. They'll be more accepting of it. Okay, what is your favorite of the ways you described in the videos to use social emotional learning in your classroom? Or rather, what is the one that you feel would be the best to implement in the classroom for virtually, or that you have the highest success rate? Okay, so I think the most important things to bring into a classroom are community building. So whether you do it in a circle in person, we had a meeting on Zoom every day, but we always had like a fun greeting, a connection question, like, you know, if you owned a store, what would you sell? And some kids would be like, I would sell peanut butter sandwiches. And some kids were like, I would sell hope. And some kids were like, I would sell flowers or Minecraft games, you know, those kinds of things. So have some kind of connection activity in the beginning. And then I would stick with those 3 signature practices: joyful, inclusive openings, which a roundup or a meeting will be one; engaging, collaborative learning activities like working with partners, breakout rooms, sharing student work, you know, kind of getting the teacher to move to the back of the room so students are front and center, have students talk to each other, and then that optimistic closing. Those are just simple things you can do. And the Castle resource in the PDF links into what their suggested activities are. And I think in the video, I give you just my suggested activities. And I had to do everything on Zoom through January, essentially last year. And then even when I had kids come back, I had Zoom in room, which was like the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, I think. So we still had to keep some of those Zoom structures, even though there were kids in the classroom. So start simple. I also bring in language around emotions and normalize all emotions genuinely, and model. Like, even just be like, I'm frustrated now, and like go to your cool down corner. Like, do what you want the kids to do. Go to your breathing bench. Even if you have to make it up, tell them, I'm feeling frustrated because you're not listening to me. So I'm going to take a break for a minute. And kids are like, oh my God, Mrs. Turner just went to the cool down corner. You know, they can't believe it. Or just apologize when you are not regulated and be like, I just blew it, kids. I blew my top. I'm so sorry. And they'll be like, oh my God, Mrs. Turner's apologizing for something. Like, you know, model what you want them to do because they're watching and listening all the time. Oh, sure. Okay. So the I am from poem. Yes. Okay. So the I am from poem. Did I show you one in the presentation? Yes. Okay. So there were 4 sections, and I believe this is the way it's broken down. The first section is things you might see outside your home. Okay. So you might see like a basketball hoop or a park nearby or a long driveway or a hill, something like that. Then the next section, I believe, was things in your home. So I think I said table for 6, like that would have been my growing up, table for 6. Some kids said, you know, like the couch with the cushions coming out, or, you know, like the red carpet, something like that. Those are things in your home. Then the next section, I believe, was people in your home and things people say. So like, say someone in your family is always saying like, chin up, or blood is thicker than water, or you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family, or whatever. Things that people say and the people in your home, and maybe extended family too. And then the last one was like traditions. So cultural celebrations, Mardi Gras, Rosh Hashanah, Christmas Eve, or keeping photos in a shoebox, kind of like family togetherness. So it's just 4 sections. And I would say you got to give some kind of a model to the kids. But what you can do is there's a link in the presentation that links to the woman who did this kind of poetry originally, and it's a voiceover. So you could play that poem for the kids. Now, again, I was younger, so I made mine like less complex. I think I made them have like just 2 lines in each of the sections. But with older kids, you could do 2 stanzas for each idea or something like that, have it be a couple pages. And just go on YouTube too, and also just Google I am from poetry. A lot of students have posted them. So you want to give them a framework, give them a guide. I do give a model with the younger kids, but you're right. You don't want them to copy down anything. And you say, you know, you can't copy this because it has to be about you. So I just want to show you how to do this. And they should be able to do it. When I looked on YouTube, there were a ton of like high schoolers that had put them out there, which was cool to see. Super powerful, super powerful. Okay, what's your favorite way to incorporate demonstrations or activities to increase self-awareness? Okay, so self-awareness is going to involve a couple things. One is that identity piece, and I did an identity unit for the first time last year, and it was hard because I was remote and it was the first time I did it. But you want to include in your identity unit, define and then have kids articulate their culture, their ethnicity, their race, their values, right? Like, who am I? Where do I come from? And then another part of self-awareness is going to be being aware of emotions, thoughts, and feelings. Okay, so how do I feel when this happens or that happens? And then another piece is articulating those strengths. So there was something in the chart called like a strengths chain, and that was about younger kids articulating strengths, but you could do that really at any level. Identity you can do, and then what are the thoughts and feelings that you experience most often? What are 5 feelings you have each day? What happens when those feelings arise? When do you start feeling frustrated? Is it because of people or because of an academic assignment? Something like that. So I think those are like 3 key areas to hit on: strengths, emotions, thoughts and feelings, and then identity, personal identity. And personal identity is really something we need to focus on to advance racial justice, right? Because we don't want to say, I don't see color, I don't see any differences. We are different, we are diverse, and we want to value that and normalize talking about that. So I think it's really powerful for students to articulate those parts of them and celebrate them in classrooms. That's what I'd say about that. For relationship skills, what would you do if 2 students not get along in class? Would you resolve it on your own or involve parents? So I would do everything I could before I got to parents, right? I would believe that I could fix this and help the kids fix it. And what I would do is I would observe that they're not getting along or someone's complaining. And I would probably have like a quick conversation with each person. What's happening? What's going on? How are you feeling? And then I would facilitate a meeting together with those students, like a restorative conversation, like, well, what's happening here? How are you feeling? And what happens a lot of times is kids are like, oh, I didn't know I made her feel bad like that. I was just doing X or Y. So you can't fix it without involving them. So if we call the parents, we're just going to piss off the parents and nothing's going to get better in the classroom, right? So you have to actually be at the root. I would try to avoid the parent thing because it's like a threat kind of, and they can't really help. They might be able to reveal something about their child, but I would really try and work on it in class. I would do things like invite both of those students to lunch and have them each invite 1 friend. So then you're having lunch with 4 kids and each one of them got to bring somebody, and I would like do some like 20 question games, because chances are those kids have something in common and we want to reveal that. And then we want to think about how to intentionally pair them or partner them again in some way. Maybe they need some time off, let them stay off, but I would talk to kids separately, then talk to kids together, then kind of like ease them back into it. And if you do want to involve parents, make sure you make those positive phone calls at the beginning of the year, because if you're going to call parents for the first time with a negative complaint or something, it's not gonna, it'll just be like, oh, I only hear from you when there's something wrong. So invest in those positive phone calls the first couple of weeks of school, and try really, really hard to resolve it without parent involvement, because it's really about the kids in the classroom. Okay, how to implement these practices as a substitute teacher without stepping on? Okay, that's a good question. So if you're a substitute teacher and you're going in, sometimes you have plans, sometimes you don't, sometimes you have bad plans, you have kids ready to take advantage of you. I would just have like that bag of tricks that you would do every time you go in as a substitute teacher, and you walk in and you say, hey, I'm your substitute teacher. I know this is hard. I need to get to know you guys. Can we do like a little roundup or some kind of community thing, and just, have like some type of question where the kids are sharing something, and you can share with them as well. And then I would just do something fun to warm up before the work, right? Like some kind of fun activity that gets people laughing. Like I play Would You Rather or Not. So I did a training today at my school during in-service, and we had this question: is a hot dog a sandwich? So everyone had to get up out of their seat and go to one side of the room, is a hot dog a sandwich or not, and then talk about it. And so you just like kind of, everyone did not want to hear from me after lunch at 2 o'clock. They were exhausted, worried about meeting families and digesting food. And I'm like, great. But we started off with that. And then we watched a sunrise video for a minute. So we had energy up and energy down, and it just calmed everybody and got them to a good place. So I'd recommend doing things like that, like setting the tone with some joy. I mean, those kinds of questions, it takes 1 minute to do that. And then I love videos of nature or baby animals or like a breathing video, just 1 minute. That's all you need. And then that can let everybody kind of go, and then you start to implement your substitute plans and ask kids, how does this work here? How do you do this? Get them talking and feeling like they're helping you. They will love that. Do all states have SEL in place in classrooms? So that's a great question. I shared with you guys the CASTLE model. CASTLE is the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning. They have a collaborative with states around the country where they work on implementing SEL systems. So Delaware has a collaborative with them. We've got people doing a lot of work on SEL at our state Department of Ed. I'm sure New York has one as well. And then what happens is that it looks different in different districts. So my district has there's a curriculum in elementary, but only the guidance counselors teach it. So that's a good first step, but it's not great for having SEL embedded in classrooms, because ultimately we want SEL embedded with academics. It can't be separate, can't be the guidance counselor only. It's got to be everyone's job and everyone's belief. And a big part of it is also adult SEL. So I'd say that states, I would say that in this day and age, particularly in the context of COVID, everyone's talking about SEL and thinking about it, but they're doing it in different ways. And there's just different levels of implementation. Anybody here have a class on social emotional learning in their prep program? Have you guys had any classes on SEL?
No, but New York State does have standards, social emotional learning standards.
Okay, so that's great. That's
them on their own, yeah.
That's really positive. We have competencies, which are different from standards, because standards are supposed to be able to be measured. So that's awesome. I find when I talk to new teachers that not a lot of teachers get instruction on SEL in their prep programs, which makes it hard to then go into classrooms with it. So then it leaves it up to districts. But when you have thousands and thousands of teachers, it's hard to train everyone the same way to have it happening the same way in classrooms. So I believe for me, it's like a personal mission. So you can make this your personal mission. And I will tell you that I think it's the secret sauce in education. And if you invest in this, you will have higher academic achievement. And you shouldn't have a problem with it. Like if someone comes in and is like, what are you doing? I'm observing you. Just be like, I'm doing social emotional learning. Because it is a necessary ingredient, especially now with COVID. And I would also advocate for adult SEL. We have to work on our own competencies so we understand them and we can model them. So that's a big piece. That's what we worked on in in-service today. I was thrilled. Going off the mental health question and how you said you're approaching the school year by slowing things down, which I completely agree with. What advice do you have about justifying your decisions with parents who may give you pushback? I know a lot of parents will have the expectation to catch kids up now that they're back in school full time. I guess I'm curious how to balance all the pressure from adults, yet ensuring our students are being put first, including their mental health. I also know the relationship with parents is especially important. So I would, with parents, if someone is complaining to you about not going fast enough academically, I'd be surprised. If they are, say, trust me. Say, I'm really working to rebuild stamina in students. I'm working to create a safe learning environment. We do need to go a little bit more slowly. You know, some kids are coming to school and they haven't been in a building in 18 months. 18 months, that's 531 days or something. So to think that we should be rushing into academics, it's just not going to work. So that pressure is tricky. I would actually go to your administrator for support too and be like, oh, like in my school, they've said for the first 2 weeks, no academics, stamina building, community building, relationship building, easing into it. So I have like kind of permission to do that from my admin. So, you know, talk to your administrators about it. Be like, what's the expectation? Because then you can say, well, I'm following the school-wide expectations. We are focusing on SEL for 1 week or whatever it is. And if it gets really touchy with parents or you feel like it's really aggressive, reach out for that support because that can get really tricky. Yeah, and we need to meet students where they are, avoid terms like learning loss, call it unfinished learning, and just say, it's not learning loss because how could they lose something they never had? Like we just have to meet kids where they are and move them forward. So if we don't meet them there in a safe way, it's not going to work. But reach out for help if you get in a really contentious situation. That's what I would say about that. Team leaders, admin, etc. Okay, how would you, parents don't like the amount of emotion being expressed in school. All right, so a couple things with this question. What would you do if the student didn't have each of the social emotional areas in both school and home? So that could be the case, right? We know we have trauma at home. We know we may have families that never talk about emotions, right? So I guess number one is, how do you communicate what you're doing in school with families, right? So like, do you have a weekly newsletter? I have a weekly newsletter, and I send it and I say, we did this, this, and this. Generally, I find people are excited about the social emotional learning work, especially if you can like tie it back to like Castle SEL, like something going on in the state. I'm trying to think of a scenario where someone would be like, I don't like my kid talking about their emotions. That actually might be a red flag to like maybe talk to a counselor or something, because especially if the kid has a lot of emotions. So I think that, again, reach out for that support. Always listen to parents. We always listen, and we can always connect with parents and say, I hear you. Thank you for sharing your concern. I understand. And even if you're sitting in a meeting silently screaming, going, oh my gosh, I can't believe a parent's saying to this, in that meeting, you can listen, you can validate. And then if you're not sure what to do, you can reach out to your counselor, your admin, somebody, and say, I'm not quite sure about this, or this feels weird. This parent is saying they don't like the emotion. If it ties back to what you're doing school-wide, or a district curriculum or a district initiative, that should be defensible. Yeah, that's, reach out if you find yourself in a tricky situation with that as well. 8th grade students in my granddaughter's school created an I Am poem. They were amazing and beautiful, very successful activity for all, included in family program. Yay. So those I Am poems. So I did them at the end of last year with my 2nd graders, and I'm going to do them in the beginning of this year and then at the end of the year to see if they change. I'm really, really excited about that. And I cried when I read some of them. They were just amazing. Okay, no problem. SEL.SES. Thanks, Brenda. No problem. Okay, and Kelly has shared their SEL benchmarks. So it's interesting, this language, standards, competencies, benchmarks. So benchmarks makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and that's great. That's what your state is doing. Let me, guys, drop in the Edutopia article I just mentioned. Give me a second, and then you can take a look at that. We'll see if there are more questions. Okay, so this article, I mention it like in every training that I do. Rose and Thorn is in there, and there's some videos embedded that show practices. There's like a snowball toss. There's the 3 A's, appreciation, apology, or an aha. I've done that with 7-year-olds. It's just an awesome article. Bookmark it if you can. And if you're stuck, or you're like, I teach older kids, I don't know what to do, there's plenty in here for everyone, and Rose and Thorn is outlined well. If anyone has any follow-up questions to how I'm answering your questions, please let me know if I can elaborate on anything, or if I'm being confusing in any way, let me know. Kelly, they have my email. You can always, WendyMTurner@gmail. People can always email me directly too.
Yeah, it's right at the end of the presentation. And I loved how you said, once we know each other, then we know each other and you can email me.
Yeah, I always say, like, when I make a presentation, I know you know me, so just email me. I meet people on Twitter. I did a presentation for teachers in Nigeria 10 days ago. I just want to help people with SEL, no matter where they are and what they need. So I'm happy to answer any email.
Anyone want to pick Wendy's brain about any ideas they have for starting off the school year? Anything specific? This is your time now, because we're really lucky to have her here.
I'm going to share too. I'm going to do something on the first day. I'm going to do a round of questions with the students. My first question will be, what are you excited about at school or for school? What are you curious about? And what are you worried about? And I'm going to let kids answer by verbally contributing. If they are uncomfortable doing so, I'm going to hand out index cards, and they can just write down their question, fold it in half, and I'll pick it up later. So some kids are just not comfortable expressing that, but I want to find out, what are you excited about, curious about, what are you worried about? I think those are good questions. I also do like a little interview the first day. It's the last task we do, and I find that the kids really like it after learning about how to line up and where the crayons go and whatever. I ask them, how do you picture yourself as an adult? So I can just get that glimpse of their hopes and dreams. What do you want me to know about you? And I just tell them, I don't want to know deep, dark secrets, crazy stuff. I'm like, what are your hobbies? What do you like? What makes you, what are you into? What do you like to do at home? Like, what do you want me to know? And then I ask them to, at the younger level, I say, can you draw a picture of something that makes you feel happy? And some kids might draw their Pokemon card album. Some kids might draw a picture of them watching TV with their mom. Some kids might draw themselves eating their favorite food. So those questions that start to help me know what's going on with my students, but they're posed in like a way that is non-threatening, hopefully. And by giving kids multiple ways to participate, because not everyone wants to raise their hand and share their worry, I think I can start to get a lot of information that way. I also ask them, what questions do you have for me? And I think any age you can ask that question. And then I also ask, what are your expectations for me? And they're like, be nice, help us, like basic stuff. But just by asking, they're like, what? I start talking about emotions like on the second day, and start to normalize that all emotions are okay. And I'm going to do an identity unit, culture, heritage, ethnicity, race, values, family, community, all those pieces. Hopes and dreams. How to use stuff in the classroom. How do you turn in papers? What happens when you break a pencil? There's this thing, maybe you guys have seen it, like there's this big debate, like if the kid doesn't have a pencil, do I give him a pencil? Just give him a pencil, right? But I'm teaching personal responsibility. No, but kids are crazy and they lose pencils all the time. Just have a container of pencils on your desk and be like, here, instead of getting into like a power battle or a struggle or trying to teach them something. People with their doctorates lose pencils. Plus we all have COVID brain. Like, just give them a pencil. Be nice. That kind of stuff. Hold the expectations high, hold them accountable if there's something goes wrong, but like, just give them a pencil. That kind of thing. I knew a middle school teacher, for the first 5 minutes of class, she had a 90-minute block. First 5 minutes, kids had a choice. They could listen to music with their earbuds. They could sketch or journal. They could check their phone. They could fill out a sticky note to give her a little note, like how she was feeling. And I'm telling you, by giving them those 5 minutes, she got the 85 back. And some kids come from a previous class where they got into a fight, or they got blocked on Snapchat, or they got a bad grade or something, and they just need like that space to feel, to regroup, to have permission. And I thought that was like just brilliant.
Wendy, can I just ask you, so all these wonderful ideas and things that you do to gather information about your students. So if I'm a new teacher or a teacher who's just starting this in my classroom, do you have a way to kind of organize all of the information that you get about your students, or you just kind of like keep it up here, or, is there a system that you have for that?
So that's a great question. I have a folder for every student. So in that folder, I drop in that paper we do, like, how do you picture yourself as an adult? What do you want me to know about you? What makes you happy? That goes right in that folder. I actually share it with families at conferences. Other things, I just take note, right? So like that activity I mentioned to you, where I'm going to ask those 3 questions. My first question will be, what are you excited about at school? What I'm going to do is I'm going to have kids like raise their hand, and I'll be typing on like a Google Doc that's on the projector so they can see me typing. And then for the kids that just walk up to me with a card, I'll just open it and read it and add it. I won't put names next to it or anything, but what I'll do is I'll just see what the whole class is. So I don't need to know that like Braden asked this question or Daya asked this question. I'm just going to take note of it. I just watch and listen a lot. And I also make a chart that's got like the kids' names, and by like the end of a week or two, I make sure that on that chart, I can write down 3 things about that kid. Not like they have 3 brothers, but like they like horses, they play soccer, and they're shy for the first 2 hours of the day or something. Like, I just make sure I kind of like task myself to constantly reflect and be like, what do I know about this person, that person? And then, geez, I have nothing about this person. Well, I need to get myself in there, because some kids don't make a peep, don't cause a problem, don't say much. So they're going under the radar, but like we're missing them as much as the kid crying out for help because their behavior is a total mess. So I've been a teacher, this is my 12th year, so I've been doing it a long time, but just watch and listen, like pay attention to the smallest things. And you'll just start to remember stuff. I know when you're in middle school and high school, you have so many kids throughout the day, like over 100 kids, it's a different kind of thing. So maybe you would want a note-taking system, Google Doc, make notes. I'm way better with like paper notes. So I just have a box and I make notes about stuff and I just throw it in that box. And I don't like file them, but someday I might be like, oh, about 3 weeks ago, I remember when I noticed something, I can go back in that box. I just like write the date at the top and you just write down things. Cult of Pedagogy has one of their blog posts or podcasts. It's like a 4-part system for getting to know your students. Check that out. Let me just get the link for that. I'll put that in because that would give like some structure to it. Hold on one second. Yes, okay, she calls it a 4-part system for getting to know your students. Cult of Pedagogy, so that's another good one. Okay, there's that link. COVID regulations and stereotypes. Yeah. Okay, so great question. With COVID, do we have to keep the same kids in the same pod? So I'm so mad at COVID, like I hate COVID. I did a grant to get tables in my room like 4 years ago because I wanted the kids looking at each other and collaborating and sharing supplies. And now I have no carpet in my room, no tables, I've got these desks. But what I did is we're able to have kids 3 feet apart since they're masked. So I created little pods of 4 and I'm going to change them every month. Okay, so there's gonna be 4 kids sitting together for September. Then I'm gonna change, there'll be 4 different kids in October. And during September, I'm gonna ask every kid, who are 2 kids you'd wanna sit with, right? So I can find out who people wanna sit with because I can't have them sit next to the same person all year because they won't get to know everybody. And I usually do a ton of like partner activities and different things that I change all the time so the kids can change their partners. It's gonna be harder, but our kids are masked and we just have hand sanitizer everywhere. Like we're still going to be able to have kids talk to each other. Someone had the idea to get like a paint stick from the hardware store and get a hand and laminate it, and the kids can give each other's high five with their paint stick hands. You know, you still have to figure out ways to get that like that bond. Virtual hugs. I was like virtual hugging everyone tonight. Elbow taps, fist bumps. I can't use a talking piece in circles right now, which I love to do. I can't use anything that has like fabric on it. So like even some of the like my common corner stuff, it might be like a little stuffed animal or something. I can't use any of that. After kids use things in the common corner, I got to put it in a bin, so I got to wipe it off later. Like it's going to be really hard, but be relentless in pursuing situations where kids get to talk to each other, different kids all the time. Put them in planned partners, random partners. Sometimes you have, tasks that are grouped a certain way. Don't let that fall away and be like, oh, it's COVID, I can't mix anybody up. Do it. You got to do it. Even if they're standing, you say, stand up, find a partner, stand 3 feet from each other and talk about this. Make them do it.
So I think Rebecca's saying she is forced to keep them the same. Is that right, Rebecca? If you have any ideas, they have to be by the same students all year. Is that right?
So when we went to the facility meeting today, they just said that they want them around the same kids all the time. But I do think that we can switch them up every month because I like that idea, like switching them up like September, October. I don't make the final call on it. I just wanted to see what someone else's perspective was on it because I feel like it would really affect socially and emotionally, like the kids not being able to even introduce themselves or like talk and communicate with the other kids in the classroom.
But here's the thing, they can. Okay, so if you have kids in pods of 3 or 4 and you have one kid over here all the way at this end of the classroom and you have another kid over here and say they can't get up, hold up a whiteboard and say, hey, I like your hair. Or, hey, what do you think about this question? You can communicate. You just have to be like really, really creative about it. So kids across the room can talk to each other with whiteboards. You can play snowball toss where you write an answer to a question and you crumple it up and you throw it. and someone picks up the snowball card nearest to them and their name is on it and read it. They can't, you just have to be like relentless and inventive and creative and not give up on figuring out ways for kids to communicate. Just because they're not sitting next to each other doesn't mean they can't communicate. You can have everyone, you can use Flipgrid. You guys know what Flipgrid is? People make videos to respond to things. So have kids make Flipgrids and then respond to each other's Flipgrid, right? If you have to, I mean, I could see a scenario where I'm like, all right, everyone go into Zoom, because then we'll all see each other in a box. We'll see all 20 of us and we'll talk on Zoom in the classroom with headphones on. If that's the way I got to get people to talk to each other or be in a breakout room together when they're physically across the room, I'll do it. So you just have to be like super, you have to persevere and you can model. Hey, I'm trying to figure out guys a way for all of us to talk to each other, for you to be a partner with this person, even though you're across the room. What ideas do you have? You know, there's whiteboards you can sell that have like a paddle, you hold them up. Just be crazy and fun. You can communicate. We can't be limited by where we're sitting. Just reach out if you need to, reach out to me. Think of inventive, creative ways. Flipgrid is awesome. Nearpod is a lesson tool, and they have something called a collaborate board. So I can put a concept up on the board. Here's this vocabulary word. Here's the story character. And then the next board is like, okay, what do you think about this? And everyone types in and all the answers are popping up like bubbles. So even though they're all sitting at their own desk, they're all involved in the task. Google Jamboard is phenomenal because it's a collaborative tool. I had kids at home and at school doing a Venn diagram together on a Google Jamboard because it was that shared virtual space. So I think that's in the SEL practices, the CASEL ones, that's that engaging content. We've got to make sure they can collaborate regardless of who they're sitting next to. And just reach out to me for ideas. I have a million ideas. I had to do it all last year. I grew my brain so much. Growth mindset out the, you know what. We had to solve these problems. Like, it was actually one of the most productive and innovative years of my life because I had to constantly solve this problem. How to do a morning meeting on Zoom. Oh my God, what? We were like knocking it dead. So if you're stuck, talk to people, reach out. Student teacher. In regards to earning student trust. Yes. Okay. So you're all new teachers. It is such a hard job to be a teacher, but such a rewarding and wonderful job. To earn that trust, be real. Be real with your students. If you're doing some activity where you're like, yeah, let's all share like a hobby or an interest, share yours. Okay. Share when you're having a crappy day. I have the kids wear these bracelets, red, orange, and green, or excuse me, red, yellow, and green for their mood. Some days I get in a fight with my daughter at the bus stop and I'm like in a terrible mood on the way to school. And I just come in and put on a yellow bracelet and they're like, oh, are you okay? Right? Because I am revealing that I'm not doing okay. And I can tell them why. They know I love the Green Bay Packers, even though everyone loves the Philadelphia Eagles where I live. So you just have to like be human with them. And then the other piece of trust is that when they suck, academically, socially, emotionally, just be that safe space. Be like, I know you're having a hard time. What do you need? You're struggling. Let's talk about this. Let's take a break. Give them permission to not be perfect and to recover. And then that builds trust. Be real. Like, there's all these old things I used to say, like, don't smile till Christmas. Like, no, smile the first day. Like, are you kidding? Give them a pencil. Like, all these things. I think kids of every age need adults who are helpful, make things fun, and care about them. So the things that you're asking your students to do, just do them yourself. They will love it. Apologize. Those kinds of things. They're like, what? A teacher's apologizing? Yes, because teachers screw up. You'll learn so much in your first year, especially now, but you'll be amazing. Believe in yourself too. That's the other thing. Believe in yourself that you can do it. And reach out for help. We also did you guys know about the Marigold article, called the Pedagogy Marigold thing? We did this thing, and I'm going to put the link in there in service today. The article talks about how it's so important for new teachers to find a marigold, which is someone who's positive and helpful, and beware the walnuts. Walnuts are like toxic and negative. And sometimes the marigolds aren't even in your building. Like maybe they're outside of your school or they're even online, like the community of teachers on Twitter. Let me just get that one. It's another good one. You can tell I love cult to pedagogy. Let's see here. And we just read this today. And it was so awesome. And then it was so cute. Our admin, we all got little pots with marigold seeds and soil. And we planted marigolds. We brought them up to our classroom. So cute. Okay. So Kelly, put that in your toolkit. That's so great for new teachers. One of the best reads ever. Yeah, don't be afraid to reach out for help. Work on your own, emotions, management, your self-care. You have to be intentional. It's not easy. People tell teachers do self-care, but they don't really tell them how or give them space to do it. Make sure you take care of yourself. If you're struggling, reach out to someone. Marigolds, exactly. Marigolds protect the gardens. They have that smell from invasive bugs. Yes, I love that. Another great analogy. And they plant marigolds next to plants they want to grow. And then the plants they plant the marigolds next to, they grow big and strong. That's you guys. You guys, if you're next to a marigold, you're going to grow big and strong. So that's another wonderful perspective piece. So find your marigolds. I can be a marigold for you. Just email me. I'm here.
Any other questions for Wendy?
I hope I'm not overwhelming, talking too fast, saying too much. I hope this is helpful. And again, I share so much, even that presentation, that PDF was so much. So if you pick a handful of things out of the 50 pages, that's what you do. Pick a few things, do them well. Make that investment.
Well, thank you so much. If there are no final questions, we'll close our happy hour or continue it somewhere else.
Please continue your happy hour. And I wish you all the very best of good luck. And Kelly, please stay in touch. And I'm here, guys. Just please reach out. I want to be a marigold to you. And I appreciate you for going into the most important profession in the world. Thank you for doing that for our kids, and be well this year.